morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Andrew Butcher. I serve as president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. Thank you so much for joining us for today's historic announcements. Before we get started, I want to share that my 10-year-old daughter is here today, not just because she cares about the future of broadband, but because I made her come. After this event, she'll get dropped off at her first sleepaway camp. Her packing list had 3 requirements beyond basic clothing: a water bottle, a flashlight, and envelopes with stamps. Water, light, connection to each other. These are the things we really need. Being connected to each other is how we establish and sustain our humanity, be it through shared experience, a handwritten note, a bus ride, a common area code. Our ability to connect helps define us individually and collectively. Even more so, our ability to connect is what enables our collective prosperity. Benjamin Franklin knew this when he helped establish the United States Postal Service. President Eisenhower knew it in expanding our federal highway system. And Maine's leaders have known it for a long time when it comes to high-speed internet. While we are in a place known for rugged, remote, and a rural profile, we live in an age when we no longer have to choose between connection to place. When we live between a connection between place, while we're in a place known for, we now live in an age when the privilege of living here is possible because of the ability to be connected and to achieve our utmost potential. Don't get me wrong, I am still excited and expecting the occasional handwritten note from my daughter. But I am also humbled by the realization that the news we share today will define our ability to connect for generations. Now, it is my privilege to welcome Governor Mills, whose steadfast leadership and commitment to connectivity needs no introduction. But allow me just a quick recap, because 3 years ago, her broadband bond for $15 million passed with overwhelming support from Maine voters. 2 years ago, almost to the day, she helped create the Maine Connectivity Authority, a uniquely designed entity to solve our connectivity challenges. And 1 year ago, we were among the first states in the country to put our American Rescue Plans to work, investing in broadband. And today, we have deployed and are managing over $125 million in funds to help facilitate connection to over 53,000 locations throughout the state. Tomorrow, we might take a little bit of a breath. But in the next year, well, Governor Mills, why don't you tell us where we're going?
Oh, yeah, okay. And to your daughter, here's the first letter you write back home. It starts with, "Dearest mother, dearest father," those are old enough to remember. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Andrew. You know, high-speed internet is no longer a luxury. It's a basic necessity. We learned so much throughout the pandemic about staying connected in new and effective ways. It's as fundamental as electricity, heat, water, high-speed internet. Maine has to have universal internet access if we're going to stay competitive nationwide and worldwide. The goal is aggressive, but achievable. Over the past 3 years, my administration has proven that with a little willpower, we can build the infrastructure to achieve universal internet access here in Maine. In 2020, as Andrew mentioned, I asked voters to approve a $15 million bond to expand broadband, the first new investment in internet in more than a decade. And Maine voters overwhelmingly agreed. We used those funds to connect with almost 13,000 homes and businesses to high-speed internet. To build on that momentum, in 2021, I asked the legislature to create the Maine Connectivity Authority, a new entity charged with achieving universal internet access in Maine. In 2022, with the authority up and running and with American Rescue Plans at the ready from Congress, I pledged that every person in Maine who wants to connect to high-speed internet will do so by the end of 2024. Since the authority was created 2 years ago, we've connected more than half the homes and businesses who previously lacked internet access or high-speed internet. That's 53,000 locations across our state that we've connected. That's important progress, but with the support of the federal government, I see Doug from NTIA here, thank you, Doug, and your staff. We're not stopping until every person who wants a reliable internet connection can get it here in Maine. So earlier this week, President Biden announced that Maine will receive an unprecedented investment to expand internet access statewide through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, which was heavily negotiated by Senator King and Senator Collins. Thank you to our great senators. Senator King, I know you were a stalwart supporter of internet from the very beginning, and I know that you and Senator Collins were key in getting this support through Congress. Maine will receive about $272 million over the next 5 years through Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD funds, to bring high-speed internet to places that lack connection now and break down the barriers like cost that keep people from having high-speed internet. With this unprecedented federal investment, the largest we've ever received, the Maine Connectivity Authority, and I see some of its members back there in the back of the room, Kim Schneider and others, the Maine Connectivity Authority will make huge strides in bringing high-speed internet to Maine people and fulfilling my promise to make connections available to everyone in Maine who wants one. I thank Senator King and Senator Collins for your support of the bipartisan infrastructure law that made this funding possible. This historic funding, in addition to the $30 million federal grant that Maine was awarded earlier this month to build the digital infrastructure that will support our state's connectivity needs well into the future. Maine's grant application was one of only 32 selected by the NTIA, the National Telecommunications Information Administration, out of over 260 submissions. A recognition that our creative partnerships between Maine DOT, the University of Maine System, Network Maine, and many others can and will bring broadband internet to our communities statewide. Maine will use that first $30 million grant to build MooseNet, Maine Online Optical Statewide Enabling Network. MooseNet, a middle-mile network to create regional fiber optic infrastructure to connect Maine's most remote homes and businesses. When it is completed, we expect that MooseNet will cover 131 communities, representing about 11,000 businesses and homes in Maine, and it will reach more than 200 community locations, schools, libraries, hospitals, local government buildings, and civic centers. Like the interstate highway system of the 1950s, high-speed internet is our highway of the future. Thanks to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, Senator King, Senator Collins, and the Biden administration, and the NTIA, we're building that highway to the future in every corner of the state of Maine for all Maine people. And I also want to thank my Commissioner, Department of Economic and Community Development, where is she? There, Heather Johnson, for her work over many years to provide connectivity to Maine people. And of course, Andrew Busher, for serving as president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. I think Maine is ahead of the curve. We've got a long ways to go. We've had challenges geographically, physically, getting internet out there. We have the most dispersed population of any state in the country. We don't have big cities. And we have those pesky peninsulas that make it very difficult to access homes and businesses along those roads. But we're doing it. Maine, and people are coming here. People are coming here because they know we welcome them, and because they know that they can be online, they can work remotely. Children can go to school online, and families can connect online everywhere across the state. So thank you very much, and welcome to Doug, and thank you again to our two great senators.
Thank you, Governor. One thing you may not know is that we have a call to action action as a team, and it is a bit of a mantra that we can get there from here. And thank you for being a source of inspiration for that quote. Speaking of visionary leadership around broadband and digital equity, it is my distinct privilege to welcome Senator King, who could be described as our most inspiring data geek, and a longtime advocate for recognizing how critical technology will be for achieving our utmost potential as a state and as a community. Senator King.
Thanks, Andrew. First, I have a little advice for your daughter. I remember being at summer camp, and my mother would send me letters with all these questions. Rather than write a letter, I just wrote yes and no next to her question and sent it back to her. I've always been sort of efficient in that. Believe it or not, Abraham Lincoln had something to say about what we're talking about today. Somebody said the other day, only Angus King can find an Abraham Lincoln quote that relates to the internet. Here's what Abraham Lincoln said in 1832. Time and experience have verified to a demonstration the public utility of internal improvements, that the poorest and most thinly populated counties would be greatly benefited by the opening of good roads and in the clearing of navigable streams within their limits, is what no person will deny. That was Abraham Lincoln at the age of 23 in his first political brochure when he was running for the Illinois legislature. And he lost, by the way, but he understood the importance of infrastructure. That was the theme of his whole career. Of course, the Civil War is what dominated his historical role in this country. But during his administration, the Transcontinental Railroad was underway. And he understood infrastructure and its importance in making investments in infrastructure. And that's what we're talking about today. Today's announcement is the most important infrastructure investment in Maine since the construction of Interstate 95, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And it is going to make a huge difference in the future of Maine in many, many ways. But I want to talk about particularly the economic future. Before I talk about economics, though, kids connecting to schools, somebody had to connect all those laptops, right?
What a novel idea, laptops.
Seniors connecting to telehealth. We found out during the pandemic that telehealth is an enormously powerful way for people to connect with their healthcare providers. And it's become very, very important, but it doesn't work if you don't have broadband. But what I want to really talk about is Maine's economic future. We are in a turning point in human history. And we don't realize it because we're in the middle of it. But the turning point is that for the first time in human history, people can work where they live instead of having to live where they work. Do you see what I'm saying? You can choose where you want to live and then figure out how to do your work and earn a living. How does that work? Broadband, connectivity. People can live in Dover, Foxcroft, Maine, and work in Seattle. They can live in Augusta, Maine, and work in Los Angeles. They can live in Meadowvales and work in Kansas City. And this is happening. But the critical element is broadband. And what I see is the revitalization of Maine's rural community, something that all of us in public office in Maine have been working on for 100 years. Joshua Chamberlain brought Swedish farmers to Aroostook County for economic development purposes. So the revitalization and the vitalization of rural Maine has been a goal for as long as anyone can remember in the state. We now have a chance to make it a reality. And that's a fundamentally different paradigm of work and living than we've ever experienced. And that's why this is so important. That's why this announcement is so important. The governor outlined it totally accurately. We're talking about universal service. And by the way, we're also talking about universal affordable service. Affordability is a part of this. It was part of the bill that passed, and it's part of the work of the Maine Connectivity Authority. And so that's got to be a piece of it. Having the fiber go by your house if you can't afford the service is a hollow promise. So that's also been an important part of this. Another thing I want to touch on, the term, the bipartisan infrastructure bill has been mentioned 4 or 5 times already. I want to focus on the word bipartisan, because so much of our people's assumption is that we can't get along in Washington, we can't accomplish anything, we can't do anything, we're always in conflict, it's highly political, it's a toxic atmosphere. No. Of the major bills passed in the last Congress, which is one of the most productive Congresses in the last 25 or 30 years, almost all, not all, but almost all, were totally bipartisan. And this Infrastructure Act, which included broadband as an essential element. I think it's interesting. Most people think of infrastructure as bridges and roads and ports and airports. We insisted that broadband was infrastructure. And indeed, that's exactly what it is. And I want to thank and compliment my colleague, Senator Collins. She was one of the key negotiators in the development of the broadband provisions in the infrastructure bill. And I also want to name a guy who's not here, and that is Adam Lockman, who is my staff member, who emerged as a kind of de facto staff member to all the committees that were working on this in Washington, and really had a major contribution. The poor guy had to go to a wedding in Greece, and the plane was canceled, so he's stuck on the coast of Greece. But otherwise, he would be here. I also want to thank Doug from NTIA, who's been mentioned. One of my life mottos is execution is as important as vision. That we can pass the bill and do the law, but how it's executed, how it actually is carried out on the ground is incredibly important. And that's where Andrew comes in here, Doug in Washington, and thus far, I'm not giving you a pass, but thus far, the execution has been extraordinary. Non-bureaucratic, community-based, listening to people, being responsive to concerns, and making it happen, and not slowing it down with a lot of paperwork. And that's what's so important about the way this project is being executed. So I want to go back to the beginning about the opportunity that this presents for Maine. I've thought for many years that in an equal economic competitive, the economic competitive world of the future, the nice places will win, because people want to be in a nice place. In all of history, though, they've had to go to places maybe they weren't so nice or that they weren't crazy about, because that's where the jobs were. Now, the nice places truly are playing on a level playing field, and guess what? There's no nicer place in this country than the state of Maine. And that's our ace in the hole. And this investment will enable us to move into the future, to have economic prosperity spread equally across the state, and really create opportunity for everyone in Maine, from the elderly to the kids and to the people supporting their families. The governor said yesterday, we were at another meeting, that Maine is the best place in the country to live, work, and raise a family. And now we're making that statement absolutely true. So I want to thank everyone in this room that's worked so hard to make this happen. And now let's get out and get those wires strung up. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Not only would we not be here today without your vision and innovation and passion for technology and equity, our country owes you and your team, Adam in particular, a debt of gratitude for your digital imprint on the ideas of our infrastructure for the future. We are blessed to have a federal delegation that gets it and understands just how vital our broadband is to current and future prosperity. My only regret about today's announcement is that the timing did not work to accommodate Senator Collins' schedule to join us in person as she had a previous commitment, though I am grateful that Ellie Espling is here to convey the Senator's remarks. Ellie.
Thank you, Andrew. Commerce, Gina Raimondo, contacted her a few days ago with Maine's allocation and BEAD funding. She would have been pleased to be here to celebrate with you if she were able. I'm going to read a letter on her behalf. Dear friends, it is a pleasure to congratulate the Maine Connectivity Authority and its partners for advancing the important mission of broadband access in our state. The $30 million federal award to MooseNet from the Middle Mile program and the $272 million allocation, the highest allocation of any New England state, from the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program will help break down the barriers that keep Mainers from the many opportunities that fast, reliable, and affordable internet provides. As a native of Aroostook County, I know how important access to high-speed internet is to the vitality of rural communities. From spurring job creation to supporting telemedicine and education, the internet unlocks almost endless benefits and possibilities. That is why I co-authored the broadband section of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to help bridge the digital divide between rural and urban areas. That bipartisan infrastructure law is investing $65 billion to support broadband expansion nationwide, including funding for both the Middle Mile and BEAD programs. As one of the most rural states in the nation, Maine will see immense benefits from expanding high-speed, affordable broadband access to all our people. We have made significant progress, but with more than 90,000 Mainers lacking access to fast and affordable internet, we have more to do. The funding we celebrate today, along with your continued commitment, will help our state extend its high-speed network to ensure that Maine has reliable connection to the future. Thank you and keep up the great work. Sincerely, Senator Susan M. Collins.
Thank you so much, Ellie, and to the whole Collins team for your support. Part of the Maine model of success stems from the grit and gumption of local and regional leaders who have long been pining and planning for better internet. MCA has tried to bolster that capacity through investing in regional and tribal partners that facilitate the public-private partnerships and digital equity plans that are necessary to do this work. And to that extent, I'm pleased to introduce Liz Caruso, who serves as Somerset County's broadband coordinator. Liz.
Thank you, Andrew, and good morning, everyone. So I stand before you today in two capacities. First, as a small business owner in the outdoor recreational industry of the Upper Kennebec Valley. As a homeschool mom who's homeschooled her children into college, a Maine guide, and the first selectman of Caratunk, a small, remote, rural Maine town. Like much of rural Maine, it's a great place to live and work and raise a family. But I'm here to say that small, rural Maine towns also need and deserve affordable and reliable high-speed internet. It is good for our businesses and tourism economy, our kids and older adults, and it's necessary to attract a strong labor force. Unfortunately, I'm too familiar with the struggles that our businesses face without adequate broadband connection, as well as the frustrations of our visiting tourists who come to Maine to vacation and to accomplish work. Our antiquated DSL lines make it barely allowable for our family to navigate online classes, streaming, Zoom meetings, and even wireless calls without dropping. In fact, one of my sons will be graduating next year with a bachelor's in computer animation. He's determined to live back in Maine and work remotely so that he can enjoy snowboarding in the winter and guiding Maine's rivers in the summer. But his primary obstacle is finding a place in rural Maine with an adequate connection to complete his high-powered operations. It's why this funding is so critical. Maine can't afford to lose our industries or our talented labor force like my son due to poor infrastructure or inadequate internet. Maine's workforce and our businesses must be able to compete nationally and globally. But I'm also here today as the Broadband Director for Somerset Economic Development Corporation, which is MCA's regional and tribal broadband partner for Somerset County. I'm excited to say that we have great things in the works to bridge the digital divide in Somerset County. Somerset Economic Development has worked tirelessly for nearly a decade to connect communities and businesses along the Route 201 corridor to world-class internet. But expensive middle-mile costs have deterred most ISPs. We have facilitated planning and potential partnerships with MCA and service providers in preparation for this opportunity presented by MooseNet, and we are thrilled to celebrate with you this announcement. It's phenomenal that MooseNet will satisfy the middle-mile gap in our region, but now our greatest challenges are on the front lines, helping all Mainers to connect and develop their digital skills. We will not leave any Mainer in the digital dark, regardless of how rural a place they live, their age, their income, or the challenges that they face. We must ensure that all Maine people have affordable internet, access to the equipment that they need, and the confidence and skills to use them. I'm happy to report that we have formed a Somerset Broadband Coalition of 26 frontline partners throughout the county, including 11 libraries, 2 adult education centers, 5 schools, our career center, Somerset Public Health, KV-CAP, our veterans, the county jail, recovery residences, and the local Grange. To bring digital equity to Somerset County and all of Maine, we will focus on 3 areas: providing affordable internet access, affordable devices, and digital skills training. For affordable access, we're working with MCA and other partners to bring public awareness to the Affordable Connectivity Program through the ACP for Maine state campaign. We'll assist people with their enrollment and help drive awareness of who is eligible for the program. It's critical that Congress continue to fund this program. For affordable devices, we're partnering with Give IT, Get IT right here in Waterville to provide our coalition partners with newer desktop laptops and tablets so that they can use them as public devices for their patrons and clients for free. And finally, we're partnering with the National Digital Equity Center to offer free digital training classes throughout Somerset County. They offer over 40 classes ranging in phone, tablet, and computer basics, internet safety, telehealth and video conferencing, and even more sophisticated classes like Word, Excel, and even website design. Maine residents can take these live virtual classes for free, either at home, online, or in person at one of our partner locations. To ensure folks can comfortably participate in a trusted and safe environment, we are hosting classes at local libraries for families and seniors, at the American Legion halls for our veterans, senior and affordable housing residences, recovery residences for those overcoming addictions, and at the county jail for our formerly incarcerated population. We will also be implementing the CEDC Mobile Lab, where our digital navigator will travel throughout the county, facilitating these classes and supplying participants with up to 10 tablets or laptops to use for the class. To accomplish our goal of economic and societal prosperity, we must provide the necessary digital access, tools, and training for our unconnected or struggling community members so they can be productive, healthy, and contributing members of society. In doing so, we will empower them to prosper, both in their communities and region, but also nationally and globally. Mainers are a tough and resilient bunch, but regardless of where they live, who they are, or the challenges that they face, we can't leave anyone on the wrong side of the digital divide. And with this funding and the work of our frontline partners, we won't. I'm so proud of all the people and organizations that have come together to make MooseNet and BEAD, Maine's BEAD applications possible. Collectively, our teams and this funding are giving all Mainers a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz and Christian, for your work hitting the ground running. It is now my distinct honor to introduce you to Douglas Kinkoff. who serves as the Associate Administrator for the Office of Internet Connectivity and Growth at NTIA. As a longtime telecommunications leader, Doug probably knows Maine's story better than most, as he oversees the programs that have provided funding to Maine through BTOP, BIP, TBR, BEAD, and the Middle Mile program. It's not just acronym soup. It is hundreds of millions of dollars to help us survive and thrive in modern society. Thank you, Doug, so much for joining us from DC today and for believing in Maine.
Good morning. Good to see everybody here today. I'd like to take a few minutes and first thank the Maine Connectivity Authority for putting on this great event. It's a great time to celebrate the start of a new era. I'd like to have a few acknowledgments. Governor Mills for your leadership in broadband, and which will be essential in accomplishing this goal of connecting everybody in Maine. Senator King, you've been a champion for closing the digital divide for over a decade since I've known you, and your work in passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law. I'd also like to acknowledge Senator Collins, who couldn't be here, for her work on the passage of the bipartisan infrastructure law. Andrew, you have a small job in front of you as president of the Maine Connectivity Authority, but you are in great hands here in Maine with Andrew heading that up. Ellie, thank you for your work in this, and the representing Senator Collins here today. And finally, Liz Crusoe, who is Somerset's broadband director, which is, I think, indicative of what we're trying to accomplish here in the small rural areas around the country. With that, today's a celebration, right? We're here to talk about $270 million that Maine will receive as part of the Internet for All for Maine. So the $270 million was made up of $100 million that Congress set aside for each state. The additional funding comes from the number of unconnected homes in Maine, along with the high-cost areas within Maine. So this is the latest in a series of resources that the Biden administration has brought to Maine to finalize and to conclude the, hopefully, the Internet for All up here in this great state of Maine. Maine has already received multiple funnels of funding, $30 million from NTIA for Middle Mile, $28 million from NTIA for the bipartisan jumping in my head, the broadband infrastructure program, and $1 million from the tribal broadband connectivity program to help expand access of tribal lands. But as the senator mentioned, it's not just about infrastructure, right? Affordability is essential. If we want all Americans to participate and reap the benefits of the digital economy, we have to have affordable services. It's essential. So far in Maine, we have approximately 84,000 homes that are participating in the federal Affordable Connectivity Program. We know there are many more homes that could be signing up. So we'd love everybody to go out and visit getinternet.gov. Let me repeat that, getinternet.gov, and sign up for the ACP program. This is a discount program to help people get online and afford their services. In Maine, overall, through NTIA and other federal agencies, we've received over $577 million to close the digital divide. So a large sum of money that is going to get us to our goal. Today, as everybody knows, internet is a necessity. It's not something that we should have or want to have. It is a necessity that we need to bring to every citizen in America. And it's all part of the President Biden's Investing in America initiative to provide resources we need to connect everyone in America to an affordable, reliable, high-speed internet service. So what's next now that Maine has received the money? I can tell you, you are in great hands with Andrew and his team. They are well ahead of the curve. The next stage is to submit to NTIA an initial plan. That plan will lay out exactly how Maine will suggest connecting all of the citizens within the borders. That will then be approved by NTIA, and that will open up some of the funding to Maine, and then they will submit a final plan within a year following that. I know that it's a huge undertaking. I know that Maine is already well down the path of drafting that plan, and look forward to reviewing it. We are excited to look forward in improving high-quality applications so that we can get states out there building and connecting homes and businesses as soon as possible. To assist in that process, Brooke Barron is a federal program officer here in Maine. We attempted to put a federal program officer in virtually every state in the country. She is your go-to questions, complaints, whatever you have, to come back to Washington and make sure we can get things resolved quickly. We, as the senator said, we are not looking to be a bureaucratic process. We want this to be efficient and streamlined so we can get this out to the citizens of Maine. So, in conclusion, I've been in telecom my entire career, and this is an exciting time to work with Maine and other states to finally close the digital divide. So thank you for inviting me today, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much, Doug. We are going to have time for a few questions in just a moment, but before we do so, none of this work happens without the tremendous coordination and collaboration across the state. We would not be here without the investments and partnerships with our communities, our regional and tribal partners, internet service providers, subject matter experts who have helped Maine be a leading state around the country. And this is probably the hardest part of today's effort because there's so many of you in the room who have helped make this possible. And you know, I would be remiss if we didn't take a quick moment if we could just, I know we have representatives from Congresswoman Pingree office and Congressman Golden's office here today. Thank you so much for joining us. If there are representatives of our state legislature present, would you please mind raising your hand real quick? I know that some of you were here briefly. And for those of you that are working with MCA as a regional and tribal partner, part of a digital equity task force, any part of the network that MCA is working with, please also raise your hand. Highly. Thank you. I would be especially remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank just the incredibly hard-working team at the Maine Connectivity Authority. If you would also please raise your hand. I especially want to thank the leadership of the Connectivity Authority's boards of directors for your leadership, and special thanks to our chair, Tim Schneider, and Commissioner Heather Johnson, whom have had the vision, the expertise, and the trust to make this momentum possible. Thank you so very much for your trust and service and leadership. There were countless people who helped make the MooseNet proposal possible, and this is, as we've talked about, a transformational investment in the state. And I just thank you all so much for your time, for your contributions, for your expertise. And with that, I will say, I know we have a hard stop, both the senator and the governor, I believe, have a hard stop in maybe 5 minutes, what I've been advised. Happy to respond to questions now. We also will have a few minutes for individual questions with anyone if they would like.
A question for Governor Mills, if I could. You mentioned your goal of getting everyone connected who wants high-speed internet. I'll wait till you get to the podium, sorry.
Yeah.
You mentioned your goal of getting everyone who wants high-speed internet connected to high-speed internet by the end of 2024. There's obviously a lot of work still ahead to get some of this money unlocked. Do you believe we can still meet that goal?
Andrew, do you think we can meet that goal? That's the goal that has been, that the Maine Connectivity Authority has been tasked with accomplishing. And with the members of that authority, I think we can do that, yes. We'll achieve what's possible, and we'll do it in every way we can. The money is flowing now. We have money deploying now to get broadband out. I mean, 53,000 homes and businesses already. That's pretty pretty significant accomplishment. And we're moving towards the final goal of getting everybody connected. Hi there. We start from scratch. So,
Maybe this is a better question for the Connectivity Authority, but do you have updated numbers on how many people or how many households are without high-speed internet right now?
yeah, doing mapping.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much. And, I've said it before, and, without saying bold and ambitious things, they won't happen. And the goal of making sure everyone has a connection as quickly as possible by the end of 2024 is a goal that we will make sure we meet. The updated numbers, the statistics, and the map of locations is live on the MCA website at Maine mainconnectivity.org.
Okay, and that would be where we find the updated numbers?
That's where updated numbers.
Is it still around 80,000, or is it lower than that at the moment?
So the number of unserved locations in the state, recently updated through the FCC maps earlier this month, has us approximately 42,000 homes and businesses, locations. Sorry, Andrew.
On your deadline question, remember President Kennedy didn't say we're going to put a man on the moon. He said we're going to put a man on the moon in this decade. And that was a crucial part of it. And the governor setting that goal of the end of 2024, I have a feeling will be a spur to Andrew's work.
And the work, once we meet that goal, the roughly 7% of the locations in the state that have no connection right now, making sure there's a connection to those locations is a stair step to an ongoing effort of bridging the digital divide, because a larger percentage of locations in the state have less than adequate broadband, and we will be continuing. That's what the BEAD funds allow us to do. The bridging of the American Rescue Plan funds to the BEAD funds is what allows for that to be possible. I do know that time is a factor today. Some of us are available to stick around for additional questions if need be. Thank you so much to the Governor, Senator Ellie, and Senator Collins' office, Doug, for joining us. Folks, appreciate all of you joining us today, and look forward to future discussion.
Thank you.